The man who founded General Motors said civilization exists by geological consent, consent that is subject to change without notice. Will Durant wasn't talking about Mount St. Helens at the time, but his words are easily understood by residents of Portland and Vancouver. Channel 2's Essex Porter looks at how well we spent this past year coping with a capricious volcano.
Even after the volcanic explosions of the past year, Mount St. Helens remains one of the most attractive features of the metropolitan area skyline. That despite the almost incomprehensible force that burst out of the north side of the mountain May 18th. There was a time, though, when the mountain was easier to live with. Back when the mountain, in fact, was Mount Hood, and when mountains in general were caused to reflect on the quiet majesty of nature. That period ended forever on May 18th when citizens of Portland and Vancouver had seats at ringside, close enough to see the action, but far enough away to avoid being hit by a punch. It took about a week for our good fortune to run out. On May 25th, St. Helens sent another blast of ash into the sky, and the wind finally blew the nitty-gritty of a volcanic eruption our way. When the ash fell, Portland's reputation as one of the country's most attractive cities fell with it. And it looked like the job of rebuilding Portland's image would be just as difficult as sweeping the fine powder from the streets. One of the first things to go was the convention business.
The AFTRA, the American Federation of Radio and Television Artists, canceled. That was the first convention to cancel. One other convention was non-destructive testing, a group that about 1,000 delegates. And those are the only two major conventions that canceled.
But the Convention Bureau moved quickly to recover. Advertising programs were designed to counter the damaging effects of exaggerated disaster headlines that appeared in Eastern papers. And the Bureau played the volcano as a tourist attraction. Heinel sought to add scientific groups to the convention calendar.
One of the things also that we did starting last summer was begin directing our Greater Portland Convention and Visitors Association marketing efforts toward those groups that we could capitalize on the mountain with. Geological groups, scientific groups, and that sort of thing.
Heinel admits the city lost millions, but says now the volcano is a drawing card, and Portland's visitor industry will do just fine this summer. By mid-June, our neighboring volcano had transformed from a novelty to a nuisance that grated on the minds of all of us who were feeling its effects.
What I noticed was a lot of denial, a disbelief that anything bad could really happen to us in our neighborhood.
Clinical psychologist Peter Bullard has written a book on the subject of mental stress. He says denial and anger are the first reactions to a natural disaster. Then gradually we come to accept its consequences. He says Portlanders were not as affected as strongly as those who live closer to the mountain, and some found interesting ways to cope.
On the frivolous side of things, some entrepreneurial types went out and sold T-shirts at the site of the disaster. Others packaged the stuff up out of the gutter and put it in little plastic bags and shipped it back east to sell to unsuspecting Easterners. When people get trapped indoors, and particularly when it begins to get dark, some people become very affectionate and romantic, and as a consequence, 9 months later, after the May 18th eruption, there are a lot more babies being born.
Bullard says citizens should prepare for further ash falls, then put the prospect out of their minds. But it is hard to forget these scenes from last June, and hard to believe that only 1/8 of an inch of volcanic ash fell on the city. Portland-Vancouver air quality was never worse, and everyone worried about the effects of breathing the ash. Doctors have seen no major problems yet. Cleaning up afterwards was a problem.
One of the major things that I saw as an elected official was the fact that the city went into a state of shock for several days.
But Portlanders soon recovered enough from the shock to clean 40% of the city's streets by themselves. And in Vancouver, citizens did even better. Both cities now have emergency plans to handle further ash falls.
We are prepared, I think, now for both another ash fallout situation that is of moderate type of amounts. Certainly if we had a massive amount, that could cause a lot of problems.
Officials in both cities say the volcano may have had less of a chilling effect on business than originally feared. An electronics firm did decide against locating in Vancouver, but in downtown Vancouver, Penny Runyon says the volcano hasn't changed her 64-year-old jewelry business much.
No, as long as the wind keeps blowing that way, we're okay.
And though population figures are inconclusive, it would appear that a steady stream of outsiders still finds this area of the Northwest an attractive, though sometimes suspenseful place to make a new home. Even on those days when St. Helens can't be seen, its presence can be felt. And in these cities which straddle the Columbia River, her unpredictable potential for mayhem has everyone prepared and hoping that 1 year later, we will be able to cope with whatever happens next. In Portland, Essex Porter, Channel 2 News.
Tomorrow, the tourists, from reporter Randy Ripplinger.